Man, I'm out of breath. I'm coming up the stairs. Is there water left in that glass? All right. So today I want to talk about the ego. So the ego is a psychological concept. That's what the ego is. Somebody asked me that today in an Instagram comment, and that's like kind of what made me, inspired me to do this video. So the ego is the psychological concept of self that a person has, right? And so you have this symbol of a person, and you call this person by your name, the symbol by your name, and you look at the like trends of that person, the things that that person does, the way that that person behaves, blah, 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 the way that person dresses, and you create like an identity. You create like a mask almost. And you don't even realize you're doing it. Like almost everybody has this mask on at some point in their life. You don't even realize you're doing it because it's like the only way that you know how to exist, right? You have this idea of life and you grow up, and most of us are conditioned in a culture where we have to think about, like we're taught from a young age, like think about how you act, think about what you do, think about the way that people perceive you. Like you're told, I remember one time like I did, what did I do? I did something wrong, and I didn't do something wrong. Somebody stole something from like someone at my school. I was like, I must have been like 5 or 6, so I was really little. And my parents told me that like, because I got accused of stealing the thing, I'm kind of butchering this, but my memory is faint of this, but I remember it. My parents, the people at the school accused me of stealing like some kid's thing out of his cubby or something like that, and I didn't have it. And I told my parents, I was talking to my parents about it, and they were like, well, you know, yeah, but you have to think about what they said, something along the lines of like, well, it probably looked like you stole it. It probably looked like, you know, that it was your fault because you were nearby or blah, blah, blah. And I'm 5 years old, 6 years old. And they're like, so they kind of basically made it sound like it was my fault for getting accused, even though I didn't do anything. And I was only like 5 or 6 years old, right? And so from that point on, and probably before that too, like our parents, what they do to us, or just anybody that raises us or affects us socially as we're growing up, like we're kind of conditioned into constantly worrying about what other people think about us. And that's kind of one part of this, right? Is that you have this perception, you have a perception of yourself, and every time that you interact with people or do anything that other people are going to see, like if I'm making a video like this right now, you have not only the perception of yourself that you have, but then you have another perception of other people's perception of you, right? And so you're putting yourself through this like zigzag of, well, not only what do I think about myself, but what do other people think about me? And this creates like a false identity is really what it is. It creates a like mask. It creates a cloudiness over like the truth, over who you really are. It's like but because that idea of yourself that you have is just that. It's just that. It's an idea. It's not anything more than that, right? But the difficulty is that we're so conditioned, we're so used to and in the habit of thinking that way, that like everything that I do, I have to think about what I'm doing. Every time, you know, I have to think about the way that I treat other people, and I have to think about, especially in like if you're like the type of person who has lots of social etiquette in your life, like you're like thinking about, oh, am I doing the right thing? What does this person think of me? Or if like we're creating art, we're like, well, what do these people, if I'm showing somebody like my music, we're like, what do these people think of my music? And it's like, oh, I just messed up that note. It's like, oh no, what does that sound like to them? I wonder what they think. I wonder what I think. What do I think about that? I don't like that, right? And so there seems to be the belief, for some reason, that like people cannot exist without an ego. This is not true. You do it, most of you who are watching this probably do it every day, at least once. And you just don't realize it because you're so used to, like you cover it up because you're so used to the way that you think that you believe that it's impossible for you to think any other way. Think about a time that you went into a flow state and you're just you're doing something that you love, you're doing something that you enjoy, or like you just randomly get caught up in this thing that you're doing, or you're not thinking about yourself, you're not thinking about, like maybe when you're driving a car, right? I think that happens to a lot of people when they're driving a car. You might be thinking about something else, but most of the time it's like, you're just kind of like looking at the road, especially if it's a long drive, you're looking at the road, you're not thinking about, okay, how do I drive this car? What do I have to do in order to drive this car? There's not like these words in your head playing, telling you, okay, now put the car into drive and now turn the wheel like slightly left. Like there's none of that, right? And that's a flow state. When you're able to do something or just exist without having to have words like telling you what to do, and that's what it is. That's to live without an ego. To like in that moment, you're existing without an ego because you have lost the perception of self. And it sounds like a loss, but the interesting thing is that it's actually not. To exist in that way, like right now, particularly right now, is an amazing thing. Because in the beginning, we created the perception of self as a way of bringing ourselves out of the lower states of consciousness over time. Over the course of human history, we have brought ourselves up and out of the lower states of consciousness, like from being cavemen and whatever, by having a conceptualized image of the self that we operated through, right? That's how we did that, because we created memories and we created our projection of the future. And so over time, that's how we've elevated our level of consciousness and also built our current reality, our current society, the way that it works. But when you get even higher, when you go there's something, this form of existing without the ego is not to go back down to a lower state of consciousness where you're not smart enough to have a perception of self. It's to be at a state of consciousness where you are above having the need of a self, of an idea of self. So that's what it means. And like, as long as you believe that doing something requires you, like doing the things that you want in your life requires you to have the sense of self, or worse yet, this is a bad trap that people caught in, is that the thing that you want to do or what you want out of your life is actually not your own, and it's really being badgered into you or put into you by other people, and you don't even realize that because you're so used to it. That is what stops people from letting go of the ego. Because how can I possibly do something? Like the fear there's fear that arises from that idea that like if I let go of this perception of self that I have, then I'm not going to achieve this thing that I want to do. And that itself is the ego. That's the egoic mindset. Is that if I let go of my concept of myself that I have mostly in everybody else's head, or what I perceive to be in everybody else's head, if I let go of that, then I'm not going to get the things that I want in my life. And I'm not going to turn out to be the person that I want. But the thing that you realize when you finally do, like, man, you get into that state where you're conscious, you're fully consciously aware, but the words stop playing in your head. And so you stop having you stop worrying about what other people think of you. When you're conscious and you're in that state, you realize like, damn, all of those things that I thought I wanted weren't actually what I wanted. They were what I wanted other people to see me as. Like fame. Like, I don't think that people like really want fame. I think that is to want to be famous. And maybe I'm not saying that I'm all knowing and correct on this, because it can be different for other people. But like from my perception, like fame or the desire to be famous just for people to see me and want me to like to love me and think that I'm great is an egoic mindset. And it's all because I'm worried about my self-image and I'm worried about what other people think of me. That's not the same thing as like wanting to build a YouTube channel because I don't even have to explain why, because I'm just doing it. I'm just doing this. This feels natural to me, right? So, and I'm not even thinking about that. Even that thought is not like occurring. It's deeper than that. You see? It's different. It's different than, oh man, I want other people to see me a certain way. I want other people to like me, and I want to be respected and revered in my community, and I want lots of money. And like, it's not, Having that mindset is just, it's not real you. It's not the real you is the thing. It's a miscommunication or a confusion of who the real you is. Because you still, if you're thinking that, then you still believe that your value as a person, you still believe that that the worthiness of your existence depends on other people's perceptions of you. You still believe that the worthiness of your existence depends on external factors like whether people like me or not, and how much money I have, and how big of a house I live in. That's the ego at play right there. That's the ego taking over, right? The ego is a psychological concept of self. And as long as a person has a psychological concept of of self that they are constantly checking in with, well, does this line up with, and you're doing this quickly. This is not like a slow thing like I'm speaking. It happens fast. You're thinking about it. You're saying like, oh, well, does this line up with who I am? Like you're afraid to be who you really are or say the things that you really want to say because you're worried about an incongruency that the other person is going to notice in you. Like if I'm talking to somebody and I don't say what's inside, if I just don't say what I think or I don't say how I feel, then I'm hiding that because I am worried that the thought that I had or the thing that I believe, that I think, what am I trying to say? Excuse me. The idea that I want to convey to this person is incongruent with the projection that I've given them so far. And because it's incongruent with the projection that I've given them thus far, I can't show them that, or they're going to think that I'm a phony. And you are a phony because you're hiding it. They're going to think I'm a phony. That's the root cause of like social anxiety right there, is that like you think there's two reasons. One is that you think negatively of yourself, and the other one is that you think too highly of yourself in a different way. Like one of them is that like, oh, this person, I have social anxiety because this person is going to think that I'm stupid or that I'm not funny. And then the other version is that, oh, I'm not going to say this thing or do this thing because this person perceived me in a certain way, and so now I'm afraid to like show them like I don't know, something like if I'm a friggin' smoker, like a cigarette smoker, and I'm interested in a girl at a bar, and I walk up to her and I'm like, she's like, oh, do you smoke cigarettes, in the middle of the conversation? And you're like, no, you're lying, right? And then later on you go outside and you really want to smoke a cigarette, but you don't, because you don't want her to see you smoke cigarettes. And now you've created from the very beginning, like that relationship is goodbye, because you're not being the real you. And so like, you go down the line a few years and, you've been with this person for however long, and then they catch you smoking a cigarette. I don't know. That's how relationships get ruined, man, is that if you're not comfortable being who you are, which means letting go of trying to control who you are, by the way. That's what that means. When you want to be who you really are, it means that you're not trying to control who you really are. So like when you're saying things, doing things, going places, you're not thinking, you're not thinking about it. You're not pondering it. And we were made to believe that that's stupid, and it's not. It's actually what you want, because that's how you be peaceful. That's how you bring peace into your life, is by letting go of that idea to need to ponder everything and every decision, or to have some sort of like set of rules or guideline that you have in your head about what you want to do, right? Like some sort of like set of bylaws that you've created for yourself that, does this line up with, what do I do in this situation? Instead, you're able to just flow. You're able to just do things because you know that you need to do them. You do good because you know what it means to do good, and you don't have to think about it. You do the things that you want to because you fucking feel like it. You don't do the things that you don't want to. You feel the emotions that you want to. You don't feel the emotions that you don't want to. And then you gain complete control over your life, and it's funny because you're not thinking about having control. So that's what it means to have an ego, is that you have a persona, you have an identity. I'm Jamie McCormick. And I have to present myself to you in such a way that I think it's going to be a congruent representation of my inner character to you. And I have to show you that I'm this way and only this way. But really you're inconsistent and you're changing all the time. And even if you're successful or you're like a driven person, like it comes naturally to you, it's not, it's not, or if it doesn't come naturally to you and you're doing it because it's your ego, then there's a lot of tension. And so you're never really fucking happy. You're driven, but you're miserable. You're successful, but you're miserable and stressed. Yeah, I'm gonna end this video here. Much love to you guys. Thank you for sharing this space with me. This was nice. Yeah. Have a good rest of your day.